Hey there, and welcome to today's class on how to sew knickers. My name is Liz, and I'm going to take you through all the basics today and help you sew up some fabulous knickers, which I think you're going to find, as I did, to be quite addictive. I'm going to be working with the kids pattern today, which you can grab for free, but all of the techniques that I'm going to use are applicable for ladies patterns as well. So I'm going to run through the process from start to finish today. We're going to start with patterns, how to make adjustments, higher waist, lower leg, a little bit skimpier, that kind of thing, as well as different construction methods for the gusset area to suit your preference. Then I'm going to quickly run you through your fabric and elastic options, and then basic knickers construction with 4 different options for constructing the gusset area. After this, we're going to run through elastic application with 6 different options for you there, and then we're going to stitch on a cute bow to the front, and we'll be done. I hope you stick around to the end. I think you're going to really love what we come up with. Okay, let's get started. Okay, we're going to get started today with doing a demo of a few different pattern alterations that you can do. So you've got your basic pattern to start with. This is what you'll have, your 2 pages of pattern pieces if you print off the pattern that comes with, and also all of the measurements for the elastics and things. So I'll put that to one side. I've just cut out 1 copy. This is my youngest daughter's size. So once you cut out your pieces in the right size, you'll have the 3, your front piece, your back piece, and your gusset piece. So to make adjustments to these, we're just going to need to trace them off, just like this one here, so that we can then make our adjustments to our tracing. So first up, I've just traced around the back there. There's a seam allowance at the bottom there, so you have to compensate for that by overlapping the 2 pieces by 2 centimetres. So that's what you can see, that little box bit there is, that's the overlap. So just popped the front piece there as it would join on, and then traced around the edge. Fold the front piece up so that it matches like your side seams would when you put it all together. And then trace around your leg hole there for your front piece. Yeah, just around there, and that way you get the you'll have the full traced out section ready to make your adjustments on. All right, so once you've got your tracing, you can just go ahead and make your adjustments directly on it from there. First one we're going to try is making a higher or lower waistband. Excuse the ruler, that's my daughter's old school ruler, so it's a bit unattractive. Now a lady's waistband is going to be on more of an angle like this than a child's waistband, but if you just extend the side seam line out like that, in the same direction that it's going, then you'll get a good fit. So for the kids one, we're just going to go straight up here. I think I'm adjusting this up about 3 centimetres, which would make a nice high waist for a young kiddo. Yeah, so just straight up for the kids one, and that would obviously be tapering in if you were doing this alteration for an adult. Exactly the same technique for if you want to make it lower in the waistband too. You just measure straight down from there as we did, and draw your line across. Okay, the next adjustment we're going to make is to the cut of the leg hole. So what we're going to do is just extend that down at the side seam there, a couple of centimetres, so you get a lower cut leg. Now on a kid's pattern, that's fairly easy. You're just extending that straight down. On an adult's pattern, you want to hold your ruler at the angle of the side seam so it extends it out slightly. You just want to add your seam allowance there, and then blend your line back into the crutch, because you don't want your crutch to be any wider. So blend that line back in. And there's the back. Now you don't want to bring your centre front line down as far as you have the back, because obviously your leg hinges at the front there, and you want to have that come up and around where your leg hinges. So I'm just going to extend that down 1 centimetre there. So I've extended it down 2 centimetres on the side seam, but I'm only going 1 centimetre down in the centre front there, making a mark, and then I will just blend that down to match the side seam with a nice curve like that. Now you want to blend that back into the crutch. You don't want the crutch to be any wider, so just blend that in to the existing narrowest point of the crutch. And there you have your new leg line for the front of your underpants. So that's a lower cut, just like that. Now you might want to make it lower at the top to match, or not, whatever suits. The last thing you've got to just check is where these two join at the bottom. You can, obviously that's the same pattern piece and you want that to be a smooth line around there, so just grab your front pattern piece and place it over the top and have a look at the angle at which the line of your back piece that you just drafted joins onto the front piece there, and see that's quite smooth, so that's no problem with this one. But if you made a more drastic change, you might need to smooth out that line a bit. Okay, so the next change is if you would like to make the leg higher a little bit on the side, so a bit of a higher cut, and that's exactly the same technique as we used to make it lower. So just moving up the side seam, whatever the distance is that you're after, adding a seam allowance there, and then joining that line in directly from the edge of the seam allowance down to the bottom of the pattern piece. And ruling a straight line directly down there, because of the higher leg cut, will give you a bit of what they call a cheekier cut. So if you don't want it to be a cheekier cut, what you can do is extend the curve down and curve it around to where either the original line was there, to get that to curve more around the buttocks, or if you wanted it to be an even fuller cut, you can curve it right down to the line that we created when we made the leg line lower. So right down there, and that makes it even more full coverage on the buttocks. That's actually a preference thing, so you can just change that to whatever suits you. Next up, we need to do the front leg curve. We're not needing to go up in such a sharp way as we did with the others, because obviously we're already over the hinge of the leg at the front. So what we're going to do there is just make a nice curve again from the narrowest part at the front, a nice smooth curve up to our new side seam there at the leg hole. So just a nice curve like that, and there you've got your higher cut pattern piece there with the full cut or cheeky cut around the buttocks curve. That's obviously dependent a lot on the shape of the bottom as well that you're trying to accommodate. You just need to trace each of these pattern pieces off this now. So as you can see at the bottom here, our original crutch seam doesn't extend out far enough to our new line. So what you need to do is add in the actual seam line there, which is the centre of the two overlapped seam allowances that we drew in. Just add your seam allowance across there, right out to where the new pattern pieces will join, and then add your seam allowance in both directions. And then you just do the reverse of what we did when we traced the pattern pieces on there, and trace them off, making sure you add that small bit at the bottom to the edge of your front pattern piece. Okay, moving on to gusset options. So the construction of the current pattern is what I'm calling standard construction. That's where your front and back piece are joined at a seam at the back, and your gusset piece is joined in at that seam as well, without a seam showing on the inside, and the front of the gusset is left unattached. That way you don't see any seam on the front of the pants. And it's just joined in down around the leg hole, that gusset piece. So there is an option to have a free floating gusset piece, so that piece is just joined down around the leg holes, and we can omit that back seam altogether. So the way that you do that is to trace off your back pattern piece, and then take your front pattern piece and overlap that at the back seam by 2 centimetres. That takes off the seam allowance of both the front and back packing piece, and trace that bit over. Now this is perfect, just like this, for swimwear. You just need to get rid of that little bit of seam allowance there, but if it was fully lined, you can just cut one out of your main fabric on the fold and one out of your lining on the fold, and you'd be away. If you want to use it for underpants and have a gusset in it though, just use the gusset piece, but you just want to round off that end, because if it's going to be free floating on both ends, it sits better if it's slightly rounded. So you round off that end, and then all you need to do when you put it together is pop that piece in and either base it or pin it in place, and then it'll be joined in to the underpants around the leg hole. And you put your leg elastic in. Alright, the last option I've got for you today for your gusset is this one here with the 3-piece gusset. Sorry, just getting organised here. Basically for this one, you're going to have a seam at both the front and the back of the gusset piece, and both of those seams are going to be enclosed, so you won't have any seam allowances visible on the inside. So you want to trace around your back piece and then trace around your front piece separately. But with the front piece, we're going to separate that into 2 different pieces. So mark the end of your gusset piece here, and then you want to take your ruler and add a 1 centimetre seam allowance to both sides of that line. So that way when you trace off your front piece and cut it out, you go around there adding a 1 centimetre seam allowance, and then when you trace off your gusset piece, you get the seam allowance on that side there. So that way it'll be the same shape. And you'll need 2 of those gusset pieces cut on the fold. You'll need 1 of the now much shorter front piece, also cut on the fold, and 1 of the back piece, again on the fold. Okay, so there you have your 4 gusset options: the standard, the 3-piece gusset, the single gusset, and the floating gusset. You just need to make any adjustments to your pattern first up, trace your pattern pieces off, and then you can adjust the gusset to whatever suits, and you're ready to go. Okay, on to fabrics and elastics. You can make knickers out of just about any fabric, but for most patterns you're going to need something with a 4-way stretch. I've got all cotton lycras here, but you can use anything with plenty of stretch to it. Stretch mesh, stretch lace, anything you can imagine. So long as it's stretchy, you're good to go. I would recommend a cotton gusset though. You also have lots of options for elastics. You can use a regular braided elastic like this one, usually used for swim, but there's no reason you can't use it for knickers. You can use a specialty lingerie elastic like this one that has a plush side for wearing against the body and a fancy picot edge. You can use a fold over elastic like this one. It's got a fold line down the middle so that you can wrap it easily around the edge of your fabric and encase it. Just like that, gives a nice neat edge, and you can use either side. You can use a stretch lace like this one or other stretch trims. There's all sorts of fancy frilly ones available. These can make a lovely finish depending on the look that you're going for. You can even use a bind or a banding a band or a binding of the stretch fabric itself to finish your edges. Just like that. I'm going to cover off all of these edge finishes today, along with a few of the pattern options that we just went through. So best I get to cutting out. And just like that, with the magic of television, we are all cut out. This set here with the regular gusset construction and fold over elastic. This one with the 1-piece construction. We're going to use stretch lace at the waistband and braided elastic leg bands. This one with the 3-piece construction, using the lingerie elastic. And lastly, this one with the fabric band at the waist and slightly lower cut legs with bindings at the leg holes. We also lowered the waistband on this one to compensate for the added width of the stretch lace. Alright, on to construction. Okay, now we're on to construction. So we're just going to go through one by one, and I'll show you how to put them together when you've cut them in different ways. So we're going to start with this one here, which is the all-in-one. So you'd use this for if you don't want any seams visible on the outside, or for swimmers, something like that. If you were using swimmers, you'd probably line the whole lot, but for a pair of underpants, we've got this standalone gusset piece. And all we're going to do is finish off both ends, and that's optional because obviously knit fabrics won't fray, but I overlock around both ends, and then what we just place that just on there like that when we put the underpants together. So let me show you that. Just get my overlocker going here. So you just serge and finish off those two curved edges. And then your gusset piece is ready to go. All we'll do is we'll pop it in there and baste it like that if you want to. I'm just going to pin it for now so I can show you the rest of the construction for this. So that's where that's going to go, and it's going to be attached down both long sides when we attach the elastic. There we go. Now onto side seams. With this one, all you have to do is place the side seams together, the right side's facing, and just sew or serge down that short side. Repeat for the other side, and there you go, ready for applying your elastic. Okay, so that is with the floating gusset. You see on the outside there'll be no seam at the front or at the back for that one. Alrighty. So construction method number 2. This is standard construction for this one. Okay, so this is where we've got 3 pieces as they're listed in the pattern with just the one seam. So what we're going to do now is make a sandwich. We want the right sides of the front and back pieces facing and aligned along the crutch seam. Then we want to take our crutch gusset piece, and we want to place it with its right side towards the wrong side of the back piece. Okay? And there's our sandwich. Put a couple of pins in there just to keep it in place. Clips would probably be better with the serger. Okay, and then all I'm going to do is serge along there. Okay, and there we go. Now if you hold by the back piece, you'll see the gusset flips down, just like that. And I've just realised I forgot to serge the edge of the front piece, so we're just going to do that now. We'll serge the front edge of the gusset piece, just the same as we did for the single piece construction, so that way when it gets attached, its floating free edge is finished. Okay, so If you can see that there. This is the inside. Line that up there and put a pin in it like we did with this one here, and then that's ready. You can baste down this side should you wish to hold that, but I'm just going to hold it with pins for now. There we go. So then that's the gusset portion done. And then we're just going to sew the side seams in the same way as we did for the other one, with right sides facing and lined up along the side edge. Okay. And there you have it, gusset construction number 2. Ready and waiting for leg elastics and waist elastics. All right, now gusset construction number 3 is with the 3 pieces. So you have one back piece, a front piece, which is a lot shorter than the front pieces on the others, and 2 gusset sections. So what we're going to do is start with the back piece again, the straight seam across the back. We'll take one gusset piece, right sides facing against the back piece, flip the whole lot over, and then put the other gusset piece with its right side against the wrong side of the back piece, and we've got a sandwich. We've got back sandwiched between the 2 gusset pieces. I'm just going to throw a few pins in there to keep that still while I serge along there. Alright, there we go. And now we've got our back piece and our two gusset pieces, just like that. Now what we want to do is sandwich the front piece in the same way. So what we want to do here, to stop getting mixed up, this is the right side of the back piece and the right side of the gusset piece. Take your front piece, this is the right side of the front piece, put it against this gusset piece, like that. Just put a pin in that so you end up with all the right sides of the fabric facing out. Okay, that's just to keep us going. Now, take the back piece, roll it up all the way down like that. So you've got one gusset piece, your rolled up back piece, and the other gusset piece here with your front piece joined to it. And we flipped that over. So now you've got your front piece sandwiched between your 2 gusset pieces, like that, like so. Now this is a curved seam here at the front, so find yourself the middle of all 3 pieces. Pin that centre point together and ease it around so you get to the side piece, to the side of the pieces. And then repeat that on the other side. If you can see here, here's your gusset pieces coming here and the front piece coming there. The intersection there is where the seam line is. So you don't have to match them up right on the corner, you have to match them up on the seam line. Okay, there's our sandwich, and we just have to serge along that curve. You can do these steps on your sewing machine using a stretch stitch. Often that's easier if you haven't used knit fabrics very much. Okay, that's sewn, and just pull it out to the right side. And there you have it, completely enclosed gusset seam. Now all you have to do is, just like the others, fold it up there and sew the side seams. There you go. Now we have, that's number 3 ready for elastics. I have one more construction to show you, which is completely standard, the same as the yellow pair that we just made, but because this one is going to use bands and bindings for the waistband and the leg bands, I'm going to show you this one now, and then I'll show you how to join the bands and the bindings. Alright, so completely standard again, joining the crutch. We want the back and the front to be facing each other first. Along the crutch seam, flip it over. Finishing off the curved front edge of the gusset piece, just like that. Alright. And then right side's facing. Sew the side seams. Okay. So there we have ready for bands and binding. So these are the ones that I made the lower legs for with the binding, and the band is going to add some height to the top. So these are going to be quite big, probably going to wear them more for pyjamas and that kind of thing. Alright, so let's start with bands. So this is our top band. What you want to do is make it into a loop and just serge along the short ends. Go. Now we have a loop. We want to turn that back on itself. Wrong sides together. To create a band. I'm just going to throw a few pins in that at the quarter marks, so in half there. And then the quarters. And then you have your band ready to be put into your knickers. Right. Take your knickers, quarter them as well. So we're marking the centre front and the centre back. The side seams are already marked by seams. Easy peasy. Right. Now turn your underpants inside out. Like that, and take your band. There's the seam on the band. We're going to place the band inside the top of the underpants. with the seam in the band at the centre back, in the centre back point to the band seam. Then work our way around with all of the 4 points. So side seam to quarter point, centre front to the halfway point, and other side seam to the 3/4 point. And then you can see that there. That's what we'll have now. And then I'm just going to serge around the top, catching all 3 layers together. I often start it at a side seam rather than the centre back to avoid the bulk. Make sure you take the pins out. Few stitches to anchor, then stretch the band out to match the fabric of the top of the underpants, but don't stretch the underpants. Then just continue that all the way around the top. Okay, there you have it. Band attached to the top. A bit of a steam will make that sit a lot more nicely there. And voila, all pressed and looking ready for bands, ready for bindings, sorry. The other thing that I did while I was in there pressing that is I took the bindings and pressed over 1 centimetre on each of the long edges. That'll just help us later on when it comes to top stitching it. So next thing to do with the binding is to turn it into a loop by serging it together along the short ends with the right sides facing. And the same with the other one as well. Alright, now just as we did with the band at the top, we are going to quarter pin the bindings and the leg holes to match. So I like to start with the side seam as one of my quarter points, and then all the way along until I get to what I'm going to be calling the halfway point. Then you can put your halfway point up against your side seam there, and then do the same in each direction. Get your quarter points. Right, so the way that I do binding is that I first sew the binding, right side of the binding to the wrong side of the leg hole, and then we'll be able to wrap that around like that to finish it off. So take your binding piece, turn it in the right way, Slide it inside the leg hole, if it's also in the right way, and then line up the quarter points. Okay, so there we have our binding pinned inside the leg hole. And then I'm just going to serge the two pieces together around there, around that edge. Sure you gently stretch out your binding to match the leg hole as you go. Make sure you catch the whole side of, make sure you catch the whole side of the gusset piece in there if you haven't basted it. Just make sure you've got 3 pieces there. Okay. So there we have our binding piece. There. Press the seam allowance towards the binding if you fancy. And then we're going to head over to the sewing machine, wrap the binding, fold it first along the crease, then wrap it around till it just covers the stitching, and then top stitch around there. Okay, so I know the angle's not fantastic to see what's going on here, but basically what I'm going to do is take the binding piece, fold it along the crease that we made when we pressed it in earlier, fold it again over just over the edge, and then use a stretch stitch to sew down the edge of the binding there. I'm using the triple stitch, but you can use a lightning bolt stitch or any other stretch stitch that your sewing machine has, or even a zigzag stitch if you fancy. Try not to stretch your fabric out as you put it through the machine, as that could end up with a big wobbly leg hole. So just ease it through gently. There you go. Bound leg hole. And now we have our first pair of knickers completed. The unicorn on the bottom. There we go. That's bands and bindings. Righto. So while we have got white thread in the sewing machine, we'll work on these little ones. Remember, these are the ones that I made the top shorter here so that they wouldn't be too high when we added our elastic lace up the top there. And then we've just got a standard seam allowance on the leg holes for using just regular braided elastic on there to show you how that works. So, first thing to do is to sew each of our elastics into a circle. All the stitches, widths and things that I use for all of this stuff is going to be in the notes to this course. So feel free to follow up there. To join these two together though, I'm going to sew a little seam and then open it out flat when I join it. So you can choose whichever side you like to be the top and the bottom of this. I think I might make this the top edge. So all we have to do is we're going to quarter pin the top of our underpants as we did for the other one method, and do the same with the lace. And then with your underpants in the right way, place the lace just over the top, overlapping by about 1 centimetre. And lining up those quarter points as we did with the others. Just like that. So the way that we join this is by using a narrow zigzag stitch, short narrow zigzag stitch, just over the top, right along the edge of the lace there. Just like with the other method, you'll need to gently stretch the lace out to match the fabric as you go. Try not to stretch the fabric. Okay, and there you have it. So your elastic laced, joined to the top there. And you can see, you can't really see the stitching. All we need to do now is trim it up. So trim your threads, but also on the inside here, you can see this excess of fabric. Just go around and trim that off, close to your zigzag stitch line. Make sure not to catch the lace when you're doing this. This can be a bit fiddly, but it's absolutely worth it. And that's your finish there. Lovely and tidy, and you can use that on leg bands as well if you fancy. But today we're going to be using some regular elastic on the leg bands of these knickers to show you how to do that. So first thing to do is to join them into a loop, good solid zigzag stitch. Okay, so now we have our 2 loops of leg elastic, and just like with all the others, we're going to quarter pin the elastic and quarter pin the leg hole. Right, now we're going to get our loop of elastic put it inside the leg hole, so elastic towards the wrong side of the fabric, and quarter pin it in there. Right, so there we have it, all pinned in, all the way around. Now what I'm going to do is use a zigzag stitch to zigzag right along the outer edge of here, joining the edge of the elastic to the edge of the fabric. You could serge this as well if you like. I'm going to stretch out the elastic to match the fabric like that as I go around. And that's what we have there now. You can see the elastic attached all the way around the edge there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fold that once in towards the, so like this, stretch it out slightly and sew it down along the edge. Now you can use a zigzag stitch or any other stretch stitch you like to do this, but I'm going to do what's called stretch and sew. So I'm going to fold it in like this. I'm going to stretch it out like that, and then I'm going to sew it with a straight stitch, and then that'll still, the seam will still have plenty of stretch left in it. Although, to be honest, with the lace at the top, a zigzag stitch would be quite cute on these. Here we go. Okay, and there you have it. And there you have knickers number 2. 2 different ways to attach elastic, the lace on the top, and as you would swimwear elastic with the braided. As you can see, the braided elastic has pulled these in quite a bit. The pattern is drafted and the elastic lengths are drafted for lingerie elastic, which tends to be a bit, well, not to have as much return, the same as this lace is here. It's stretching out to meet the edge. This is a lovely soft braided elastic, so I know that these will still be comfortable on my little skinny mini, but that's maybe one thing that you need to have a look at. Just if you're changing to using a braided elastic, check to make sure you don't need to make it a bit longer. Test it on your model and see what would be comfortable for them. Okay, so there you go. They're the ones with no seam at the back of the gusset. So it's just a free floating gusset in there, finished at both ends. Okay. So our next type of elastic is lingerie elastic. As you can see, it has a plush side and a non-plush side, and it has a straight edge and a picot edge. So the idea with this is that when you're finished, you have a lovely neat edge like this, just the picot peeking out like that. So to achieve this, we're going to quarter pin our elastic and the edge of our knickers as well. But after that, what we're going to do is attach the line the elastic up around the outside here with the non-plush edge against the right side of your fabric and the non-fancy edge up against the edge here. Then we're going to sew with the zigzag stitch nice and close to the fancy edge so that when we flip it like this, it's just the edge, the picot edge peeking out. Okay, so let's get that pinned up. And then we're going to be sewing along nice and close to the fancy edge here using a zigzag stitch. Stretching out the elastic just to match the fabric as you go. Okay. So as you can see there, zigzagged along the edge, trying to stay close to the picot edge so that when we turn it like that. Okay, so the next thing to do is to use your scissors and trim this excess here. Now sometimes you can get away without doing that, but it's a much nicer finish if you do, otherwise you have it peeking out on the edge here. So just a quick trim around. Again, making sure you don't trim your elastic. Okay, so after you've trimmed back all of your elastic, turn it to the right side, flip the elastic to the inside, and then top stitch just under here again using a zigzag stitch on the machine. Go. And there you have your finished edge. Just need to repeat that process on both of the leg holes. Okay, last elastic option of the day is fold over elastic. So fold over elastic normally has two sides, a matte side and a shiny side, and you can use either of those as your right side. So I'm going to use the matte side today, and all I've done is I've joined this into a loop straight across the edge with a straight stitch, and when I attach it to the underpants I'm just going to spread it apart like that. Okay, so this application starts the same way as all the others by quarter pinning both the elastic and the opening on the underpants. So technically, fold over elastic does not use a seam allowance because the edge of the folded elastic becomes the edge. You can cut your seam allowance off now if you like, which is 1 centimetre on this pattern, but I prefer to do it the way that I'm going to show you. So what we want to do first is attach the elastic to the inside, like this. Then we are going to trim off our excess, fold the elastic over to the outside and top stitch it down. So start with your pants inside out like this, and your elastic right side out, and lining the edge of the elastic right up with the top of your fabric, just like that. And matching up your quarter points all the way around. have it just like that. Now we're going to use a 3-step zigzag, or just a regular zigzag if your machine doesn't do a 3-step. And we're going to zigzag the elastic to the fabric right in the middle of this bottom portion of the elastic. You've got to make sure you stay well below the fold, all the way around in the bottom portion just there. Just the same way as we have for all of the others, we're going to stretch out the elastic to meet the fabric, but make sure that we don't stretch the fabric out. Okay. Then you will have something that looks like this. What we're going to do now is trim off this fabric as close to the seam allowance, as close to the seam, as we can, all the way around the inside of the seam there. Okay. Now that the excess fabric's trimmed off, this is what we've got. We're going to fold the fold over elastic on its fold line towards the front, and then just top stitch that down using the same stitch we used to stitch it on. Again, making sure that we don't stretch the fabric out too much as we go. There you go, there you have it. Nice, neat fold over elastic top. Very tidy. Now I just need to repeat the exact same thing on the legs, and little girl has 4 new pairs of knickers. I just need to finish those off, see about those bows we spoke about, and I'll meet you back here with the results. So here's our finished product, complete with bows as promised. So as you can see, the choices that you make for the elastic or the binding makes a huge difference to the size and shape that your finished product turns out. All of these fit the same size child. These ones are a lower cut in the legs, but because we use the binding, which pulls the fabric in less, they're about equivalent in height in the legs to these, which have a much firmer elastic in there. Lower in the rise because we lowered the top of that one, whereas this one we've added a band which has made this comes quite a long way up to the waist, these ones here. So there you go, endless options. So that wraps up our knicker making for today. I hope you've learnt a few things and had some fun. Thanks so much for joining in.